So I was struck by the two categories that you listed, the two standards of liability, one the negligence standard and one the affair between case, which is fraud. So I was wondering, since negligence in ancient law is an issue which is, I think, widely debated, did you locate anything indicating that it was explicitly a negligence standard, or was it closer to a strict liability standard?
I have elaborated about this. It's kind of a, I guess, long answer to a short question. But first of all, it's important to distinguish between, two definitions of negligence. One just being, negligent, careless behavior, for which someone might be liable or may not be, depending on the legal system, and one being, an actual standard of liability, wherein a level of fault may play in to whether a person is liable and to what degree, and whether compensation is required or not. So yes, there are standards of liability. Sometimes there's negligence rules, sometimes there's a strict liability rule. There's variety within both Mesopotamian law and biblical law. There's an article from the 80s by Saul Leavenmore that deals with that, and in my work I kind of update it based on more current research into these laws. It's been, quite a few years since then. Short answer, yes.
Once you're reading Mesopotamian law as its representative, i.e., if I understand it correctly, these are typical cases. Typically, if you imagine silver and gold, you imagine this. Imagine animals, you imagine another scenario, even though, of course, they can occur in different ways. Then why not read the biblical law as read that way originally? Meaning the biblical law is read as merely typical cases, and then there is no contradiction. That requires an independent oral tradition, rather a tradition of how to read that law and understand that law.
So let me see if I understand your question. Do you mean why not read the first part of the biblical law about Kesef Okelim as representative of Shomer Chinam?
Typically, that's the case you're imagining classically.
Yes, so that's certainly how some of the Mefarshim, the traditional Mefarshim, reconcile the apparent pshat with the halachic interpretation. I think you could do that in particular with the second law. So if we're talking about herding, then we're almost certainly talking about compensated shomer. But it's kind of difficult to assume that that's true also in a case of Kesef Okelim, that would necessarily be representative of a shomer chinam without any other indication from the biblical text itself.
But as you said here, when you look at it at the Hammurabi, you ended up deciding that the representative because otherwise the laws wouldn't work out to be consistent.
Well, specifically because in Hammurabi, in one of the laws,
one law says money.
Money is mentioned, and in the other one it is not, and there's a difference in liability.
Thank you. For a super interesting paper. The method is really interesting. I wonder if I could just ask you, this is obviously beyond the area that you have focused on, but rabbinic literature says about certain rabbinic laws that they have no scriptural authority, right? They're hanging by a hair, if you will. Could you find a precedence in ancient Near Eastern law for that material, which even the rabbinic literature says, there's no source for that? In which case, the rabbinic literature might be pushing back against it and denying that there's a connection to the earlier material.
Denying that there's a connection to biblical?
Denying that that's sort of how we would understand it, right? Because what you're arguing, if I understand, is that there is an understanding of a shomer chinam and shomer sachar in the ancient Near East, and it finds its way into the oral tradition, even though it's not in the language of the Bible itself.
Well, I think that the rabbis this is what they know of bailments.
Right.
And they can see these four categories of the Torah played out in reality if they view it this way. So they're reading it, here are four categories that I can identify from real life, which is essentially the same as what they saw in Mesopotamia, and likely what they're practicing back in Israel when they return.
Right. But they don't say they make it up, whereas with other material that they say essentially we make it up. Right, it would be very surprising to find
Right, so not here.
Yeah.
Here they don't, but there are certainly cases where they're talking about this, where they use the language of, I mean, they're using the Shomrim lexicon from the Torah. So it's clear that they're not just talking about a law that's disconnected, but they're not making that kind of claim.
Right.
As far as
קודם כל תודה רבה על ההצעה שלך, הייתה מאוד מעניינת. בזמן האחרון אני שואלת את עצמי אם המחקר שעוסק בקשר בין החוק המסופוטמי או החוקים בין מסופוטמיה למסורת שהייתי קוראת לה יותר של הפרושים ומאוחר יותר של הרבנים, האם ניתן ליישם אותה לכל מה שאנחנו מגלים היום בארכיאולוגיה ובתעודות שמייחסים לצדוקים. כי המידע שלנו על הצדוקים בא בעיקר מהתלמוד, אבל עכשיו עם התגליות של קומראן, של ים המלח וכולי, התחילו, בהתחלה חשבו שזה האיסים, היום חושבים שזה בעיקר המקור הוא צדוקי, איך לדעתך ניתן לקשר, אם בכלל, בין המקורות האלה? כי יש מקבילות בין ההלכה הרבנית לבין ההלכה הצדוקית שאנחנו מגלים בתעודות הארכיאולוגיות, והאם לדעתך ניתן גם לעשות אותה עבודה גם בקשר לתעודות האלה, קשר עם המשפט המסופוטמי.
אוקיי, אז עוד לא מצאתי משהו במסמכים האלו, במקורות האלו, בקשר לחוקים ובקשר במיוחד לחוק השומרים, אבל אם את מכירה משהו כזה או מישהו אחר מכיר משהו כזה...
השאלה שלי לא על חוק השומרים, היא יותר כללית, יותר מתודולוגית מאשר באופן ספציפי על חוק השומרים. האם את חושבת שניתן ליישם את המתודולוגיה הזאת למקורות האחרים? ואם זה היו
מקורות אחרים, אז נראה שכן.
תודה רבה.